at your knees. Drops a perfect sundress of a top. Walks at the door, distracts once more as the traffic rides straight to a stop.
Hello, and welcome back to Scott Biology. As always, I'm your host, Two-Tone Miles. You can check us out at scottandbiology.wordpress.com. If you have questions about the material, want to recommend a band or a track, send me an email at scottandbiology@gmail.com. This is episode 8, Glycolysis. This episode features music by the Two-Tone Lizard Kings and ska bands like us. Or perhaps I should say with apologies to the Two-Tone Lizard Kings and ska bands like us. So usually when I get artists lined up for an episode, I try to have a 2-week turnaround. And lately I've been talking a lot of ska and doing a lot of reviews. So I've been leaving these guys hanging for about a month. Time to get off my ass, talk some biology. So first, a bit more about the Two-Tone Lizard Kings. I name-dropped these guys on my Two Steps Twice EP review. And I've been wanting to use one of their tracks for a while now. They're out of Tempe, Arizona, spicing up the two-tone scene with an American Southwest flavor. They've got a really cool sound. Their latest album, Primeval Itch, is available on Megalith Records, but this song, Smokin' Hot, is from their first album, Bombs Away. It's available on iTunes. Why did I pick this track? Well, because like the title says, the horn lines, they're just so smokin' hot. That's why. Now, you all deserve props for making it this far. This is the start of a series of lectures on metabolism, and it's been my impression that when biology classes start talking metabolism, it tends to send people running for the hills. It's a very involved process, a lot of chemicals, a lot of terminology being thrown at you all at once. So we're going to take this one step at a time, take things slowly, and yeah. So first, we should probably just recap what metabolism actually is. Now, in episode 2, we discussed how metabolism was one of the essential processes that living things do. It's the process of changing chemicals into other chemicals. At its core, metabolism is all about breaking down food and chemicals into their base components, getting energy out of that process, and then using that energy to build something new components, new compounds. When you eat a meal, the body breaks the food down for energy and then uses that energy to sustain life, to do all the things a growing body needs to do. Now, we have to start the discussion somewhere. And from what I've seen from biology courses, sugar seems to be as good a place as any. If you can understand how a simple sugar, glucose, gets broken down, then it's not that much tougher to figure out how more complex sugars get broken down, your polysaccharides, your starches. And if you understand how sugar breaks down, then you can understand how proteins and fats get broken down. And once you know how everything kind of breaks down, you can build upon that even more and reverse the process and see how the body takes those base components and builds them back up into storage molecules like glycogen and fat. So, I'm going to throw out two chemical terms here. Catabolism, or a catabolic pathway, that's the process of breaking a compound down into its base components. You can think of a cat scratching something to pieces. Catabolism is breaking it down. Now, reversing the process, you have anabolism, or an anabolic pathway, and that's the opposite of catabolism. It's building something simple into something more complex. Now we're going to start with a catabolic pathway. We're going to break something down. Now we're going to take a molecule of glucose and cleave it in half. This process is called glycolysis, and it comes from the Greek words glykos, which means sweet, and lysis, to split. So splitting sweet, cutting the sugar molecule in half, that's glycolysis. Okay, so we start with a molecule of glucose and just cut it in half in one fell swoop, right? Just take the sugar, cut in half, and we're done. Not exactly. Actually, it takes 10 steps. Each one involves a unique enzyme. So you got 10 steps, 10 enzymes. Each step makes minor tweaks to the glucose molecule. it allows the whole process to be very tightly controlled and to trap energy as efficiently as possible throughout the process. Now, I remember in one of my biochemistry classes, we literally had to memorize all 10 steps. And when I say memorize all 10 steps, we needed to know the name of every single enzyme involved, the name of every single intermediate involved, basically, what the glucose looks like at the end of step 2 or 3 or 4, and so on and so on. And we needed to be able to draw them. Clearly, time well spent. I know, right? Now, that's rote memorization at its worst. I memorized it, couldn't do it now. So we're going to just kind of be up on the surface, taking kind of a more cursory glance at things, and just kind of understanding why this is important. We don't have to memorize 10 steps to know this is important, or to appreciate what glycolysis does. Okay, back on track here. So you start with glucose. And right up front, you're going to have to use 2 ATP molecules to get the process started. Now, we said last episode that ATP, that's the energy currency of the cell. You may be saying to me, okay, wait, you just said we're using ATP, we're spending ATP. Why are we spending ATP to break down sugar? Well, you gotta spend money to make money. You have to spend 2 ATP molecules, but at the end of it all, you get 4 ATP molecules back. -2 plus 4 equals 2. So we get a net gain of 2 ATP. So you spent 2, but you got 2 extra ones back. For the financially inclined, this would be a 100% return on investment. And if you know how to get that, tell me! Okay, additionally, the process involves an electron carrier molecule called NAD. Now, NAD, that's going to carry electrons. So you got NAD, well, 2 molecules of NAD, 4 electrons, and add on 4 protons, designated H+. H+ is a proton. And you're going to get back 2 NADH molecules and 2 protons. So you can think of NAD as the electron carrier, and NADH, that's the form that's carrying electrons. So NAD has the potential to get electrons. NADH, we're carrying electrons. We're loaded up with electrons. So we're going to come back to NADH in future lectures. Just kind of file that away in the back of your head as in the process you're putting electrons on NAD and making NADH. Now glucose, that's a 6-carbon molecule, and to cut it in half, you would get 2 3-carbon molecules. And guess what? That's exactly what you get. 2 3-carbon molecules called pyruvate. You also get 2 water molecules out of the process. So let's recap here. Going into glycolysis, you have the following. You've got glucose coming from the diet. You've got sugar coming in that you're going to break down, and that sugar is glucose. You're going to spend 2 ATP molecules right out of the gate, and you're going to need 2 NAD molecules that you're going to load up with electrons. So at the end of the process, you get 2 molecules of pyruvate. You took the 6-carbon glucose, you split it into 2 3-carbon pyruvates, cutting it in half. You got 2 molecules of NADH, the loaded up with electrons form of NAD. You get 2 molecules of water, and you get 4 ATP. Again, you spent 2 ATP, you got 4 back, so you're 2 up. So that ATP can be used to power other reactions. The pyruvate, that's going to get broken down further, and that's a topic for future lectures. Same with the NADH, topic for future lectures. Now the water, that can be kept inside the cell, or it can be excreted into the bloodstream. Now, it's important to note a few things here. Glycolysis does not require oxygen. So when you go into oxygen debt during anaerobic activity, you can still do glycolysis. You can still get energy from glycolysis even though you don't have enough oxygen in your muscles. Glycolysis also doesn't give off carbon dioxide. And it should be noted that the payout for glycolysis is only 2 ATP. You're only 2 ATP up, which is good. It's just not very much. The other parts of metabolism, those are going to be your big payoff. That's where you get a lot more ATP. Okay, well, one more thing here. Where does all of this occur? Glycolysis occurs just kind of out there in the cell, in the cytoplasm. Not really in an organelle, just out there in the cytoplasm. And this is going to be important to remember because while glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm, the other reactions, the later steps of metabolism, they're going to take place in the mitochondria, which, as we mentioned in our cell episode, that's the power plant of the cell. Now, at the risk of repeating myself, let's do a quick recap here. Well, let's do some repetition, make sure everything's sinking in there. So glycolysis is the process by which glucose gets split in half into two 3-carbon pyruvate molecules. You have to spend 2 ATP molecules, but you get 4 back, so it's really not such a bad deal. You also get 2 water molecules and 2 molecules of NADH, and there'll be more on NADH later. So you split the sugar, you get a little energy from the process, and this is all happening in the cytoplasm. Now we're going to see more about what happens to the pyruvate in the next step, which is called the citric acid cycle, or the Krebs cycle. But that's the topic for the next lecture. So just a little teaser of where we're headed. Like I said earlier, we're going to take this one step at a time, nice and slow. And seriously, if you got any questions about this stuff, send me an email at sconbiology@gmail.com. We'll try and explain things as best we can. And apparently I just got a text. I'm not going to check it right now. Okay, so playing us out is a track by ska bands like us. Awesome band name, by the way. I'm not sure if it's a statement that other ska bands like their music, or if it's an homage to the great 80s Aykroyd Chase movie, Spies Like Us, that they are a ska band in the company of other ska bands such as themselves. By the way, I probably watch Spies Like Us more than I'd ever care to admit. These guys there are out of Pasadena, Texas, so we've got more of a Southwest ska headed your way. They got 2 tracks up on their Facebook page, and I think they got a couple more on one of their live YouTube vids. If I can find that vid, I'll throw it up on the WordPress site so you can watch it. You can't buy their tracks, not yet anyways. I asked permission, and they said, use a program like Audacity to grab the track. So if you want the track for your own library, ask their permission first, it never hurts to ask. They seem like really cool guys. This song's called Change. It's got a breakneck pace and an attitude to match, and I really like it. So yeah, I'm Two Tone Miles. Thank you for watching.